Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and I have just finished watching the Miami Grand Prix. It was on pretty late, but I don't mind that. It actually gives me time to prepare for it and have a nice quiet house to sit down and watch it without kids running around, because they went to bed very nicely tonight for me and I'm very proud of them for that. But this race was, it wasn't dreadful. It was all about the tyres, really, in the end. Most cars started on the mediums and changed to hards later. No, earlier. And there were a few outliers who started on the hards and changed to mediums late on and capitalised on everyone else being really slow. I was surprised that Max Verstappen was able to get so much out of his hard tyres, and if you had any doubts that he was an incredibly talented driver, those lap times, 40 laps into the race, on the hard tyre that he'd had since the start, it was basically perfect. He came out on fresh mediums. He's only like a second and a half behind Perez with 15 laps to go, and in the end it was pretty easy for him. Not bad, seeing as he started in 9th place. Those early overtakes were incredible. It was a fantastic move on Charles Leclerc and Kevin Magnussen. They kind of held each other up and Max was in the perfect position to capitalise, but it was still a fantastic move. George Russell as well actually pulled off some fantastic overtakes in this race, but we'll get to him later. I think this race Max had to work very hard to win it, and it was those early overtakes, getting up to 2nd place by lap 15, that really did it for him. And other than that, not much happened in this race. Was there an overtake that wasn't DRS assisted? We've just watched Formula E yesterday. It was a fantastic race in Monaco. This doesn't compare. In comparison to Formula E, this was tedious as all hell, but in terms of a Formula 1 race, it's not the worst one we've had this year. All the cars finished. It was a very clean race. Nothing too surprising in the end in terms of who finished in the points. Maybe a couple of drivers were out of position, but overall it wasn't entirely unexpected. Still, it wasn't predictable, but the people you expected to rise up the field did, with a few exceptions. And the Red Bulls were pretty much in a class of their own. And I can't fault Sergio Perez for his drive. He did everything right. It was just a case of the wrong tyre at the wrong time. He's second in the championship, but he's not a million miles behind Max Verstappen. So we still have hope of a title fight right now. In terms of the constructors though, I don't see anyone even coming close to Red Bull. I think they already have like a 100-point lead over 2nd place in the constructors, and that's really bad for the other teams. I think it's so uncompetitive at the moment. I do sort of wonder how that affects motivation for people who develop and build the cars, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the season, if anyone can gain any time on the Red Bulls. Everyone else, Aston Martin, Lance Stroll was disappointing. He obviously went out in Q1, which was a massive handicap for him. Never really made progress. I think he got to 12th in the end, but given how quick that Aston Martin's been, I was expecting at least points. 9th or 10th would have been a decent enough result, but he couldn't quite manage it. And Fernando Alonso was fantastic again. A 4th podium in 5 races for Aston Martin. Best of the rest. Deserves to be 3rd in the championship. He's been fantastic all year. Obviously got on the front row of the grid here as well, but never challenged the Red Bulls. But he held off Sainz. He got back past him as well. It was a very decent drive from the very experienced Spaniard. George Russell was in 4th. As I said, he did some incredible overtakes. It was a very good race for him, and he did a very good job. Again, making the moves when he needed to and progressing up the grid, up the field. He can't be too disappointed with that result. It's probably more than most people expected from Mercedes. Carlos Sainz in 5th, mixed race. Ferrari just not on the pace again. He got caught speeding in the pit lane, which is a rookie mistake. It was lucky he didn't need those tyres again because he ruined them coming into the pit lane. But I guess, I mean, given Ferrari's lack of performance, it wasn't a terrible performance from Carlos Sainz. Lewis Hamilton behind, obviously he had a tough job starting in 13th. Looked like he had a lot of trouble in traffic getting past people, but once the track cleared up and he had fresh tyres on, he did start to plough through the field, and he ended up 6th or 7th. So Charles Leclerc in the other Ferrari was 7th. Not a great race from him. Again, like Sainz, the Ferraris just seem to lack pace, and I don't really understand why. I expect a lot better from them, but they do look the most midfield team of the top teams, if you understand what I mean. At the top 4 teams, they seem the furthest away in terms of at least race pace. They don't seem so bad in qualifying, although again, it's not always worked out for them. So that Ferrari needs some work, I think. I mean, Charles Leclerc has not had a very good year. In fact, it's been a dreadful year so far for Charles Leclerc, and he's a long way off in the championship. He's nearly 100 points behind Max Verstappen already. We're only 5 races into the season. It can't get much worse for him at the moment. Behind them, the 2 Alpines finished 8th and 9th. Great result for them. They've had some tough races this year, and a double points finish. I'm sure they'll be very happy with that. And Magnussen was 10th. Haas will probably throw a party for him. There again, they haven't scored a lot of points this year. I think that's Magnussen's 2nd point. I mean, he can't be too disappointed, even though he started 4th. That was obviously through circumstances that were not really anything to do with him. But I mean, he did a good job keeping it in the top 10. He held Charles Leclerc back for the majority of this race, and when Leclerc overtook him, he got back past. So can't fault Magnussen's performance at all. Just outside of points, Yuki Tsunoda, one of the best drives from him. He was catching Magnussen in the end on fresh tyres, but couldn't quite do it. But it was a good drive from the Japanese driver, and he held off Lance Stroll. So, I mean, where AlphaTauri are in terms of pace, it's sort of as good as you can expect from them right now. The Alfa Romeos were behind them. I honestly, with the exception of Williams, Alfa Romeo are the worst. I mean, they're sort of Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri and Williams are the backmarker teams, and they're having a torrid time. Both Alfa Romeos just don't seem to have any pace whatsoever. Can't get close to the points unless other things happen. And who else was done there? The McLarens had a dreadful race. I think Piastri was having brake problems or something. He was 19th and way down. Both Williams were down there as well. Albon looked impressive at times, but just didn't have the pace for the race. And Sargent had issues. I think he broke his front wing early on, so he was 20th. Kind of just circulating. I don't even think we saw him this whole race. Nick De Vries ran into the back of Oscar Piastri. No, Lando Norris at the start, ruined both their races, but he didn't really seem to have any pace anyway. So, I mean, it's still the usual suspects scoring points, but the Alpines and the Haas getting a point, whilst Lance Stroll didn't. The Ferrari struggling a bit. There was at least some intrigue in this race, and the tyres sort of did play into strategy, and it was quite interesting seeing that sort of work itself out towards the end of the race. On the whole, though, this was still a pretty dull Grand Prix. I hate the Miami track. I was thinking when I was watching this, you know, I can pretty much picture every centimetre of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, or Monza. But I'm going to go to bed tonight, wake up tomorrow morning, and I couldn't tell you a single feature of this Miami track. It's so bland. There's not really that many places to overtake without DRS. Now it'd be interesting to see Formula E go around it and see if we get a more exciting race. Even then, it's still not a very exciting track. I think, with the exception of that little chicane, which actually just seems to get in the way of everyone anyway, you can't overtake there, and I guess it sets you up for the corner afterwards, but it's just annoying. It's just a really bad track design. And it's a really big missed opportunity with having an American race in a major American city. Something they really, really want, as we can tell because they've stuck 3 of them on there. They didn't need to keep Miami on the calendar. Honestly, we got 3 races in America now. The first Miami Grand Prix was not great. This one wasn't great. We don't need Miami. You got Las Vegas and you've got an actual track in Austin. That's all you need in America. This other track at Miami, it's a bad track, and I'm kind of sick of it already. I've only been there twice, but I'm sure we'll be back next year. As for the championship, Max Verstappen is dominating, and I can't see anyone beating him. He has won nearly as many races as Ayrton Senna, and he is 26. That's quite shocking. Honestly, by the end of this year, he's going to be the driver with the 4th most wins in Formula 1 history, not far behind, maybe the 5th. I don't know if he'll overtake Alan Prost. He'd have to win a lot of races to overtake Alan Prost. I think he'd have to win another 13 or 14. Not out of the question by any means. And obviously, there are a lot more races in 2023 than there were in 1986. But it's still a very impressive record. When you consider Lewis Hamilton is 38, if Max Verstappen goes for another 12 years, if he wins 2 or 3 races a year, he's going to be pretty close to Lewis Hamilton, I think. Might have to win more than that. But honestly, the way he's going at the moment, where he's winning 10, 15 races a year, he's going to close up on those top records very quickly. If he decides to stick around, because it already sounds like he's completely bored with Formula 1, and I can't blame him. But we'll be back in a couple of weeks at Imola. It's a track I love. Hopefully it'll be a much better Grand Prix. So make sure you subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.